There we go. We're here. Take it away, Laurent.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm glad that quite a few of you are joining this special hangout by the AIAA Space Resources Technical Committee. I'm Laurent Sibille. I'm the current chair of the committee, and Chris Dreyer, who is hosting the Zoom here, is the incoming chair this year. So what we wanted to do here is to have a special session to have Nathan Boll, who is a program executive at for the AIAA Ascend event, the brand new flagship event for AIAA that will take place in November in Las Vegas. And for those who used to attend, this will essentially replace the Space Forum that many people attended during their career. And so Ascend is a brand new event, and we have been working, us at the TC, to really engage the Ascend organizing committee to look at space resources utilization as a major central theme throughout the conference, and that's what we're going to talk about today. The call for content, as you have probably noted already, has been out, and abstracts are due March 17. So there are quite a few questions around all this, and so we're going to start with a presentation by Nathan, and then I'll follow up on a discussion of what we envision for space resources. And we'll take your questions. We'll take your questions after I'm done talking, and then we would find it very useful if you could put some of your questions in chat, and then Chris is going to monitor the chat and then call on the questions at the end. This way we'll manage this growing crowd there. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to share the presentation. Nathan, do you want to say a couple of words to our Space Resources community? I think you're on mute, Nathan.
Indeed, I was. Thank you for catching that. I wanted to say thank you to everybody for their time in joining the meeting today, and thank you for the invitation to talk about Ascend. So I am the Ascend Program Executive at AIAA headquarters, and so let everyone on the call know your leadership team with the Space Resources Technical Committee have been instrumental in bringing this all together, and so a big thanks to them for their leadership and assistance along the way. So if you want to go ahead and go into the next slide. Ready for takeoff. So we have already launched the call for content. We are ready to start collecting the inputs and building the final agenda for Ascend. The key things to understand is that I'm going to talk about sort of the technical, how you are going to get involved in Ascend, and Laurent is going to talk about the specifics of space resources, and then we can do some more question and answer towards the end of the conversation, as he mentioned. But we are a new platform. We are trying to be the neutral ground for the entire space community to get together and talk about the challenges and opportunities that everyone is facing across 3 major areas. So if you're familiar with the Space Forum, as we previously ran it, it was focused on the technical aspects of the AIAA community. We're expanding that to include a lot more. So if you can move on to the next slide, please. What we've done is taken the Space Forum model and put it in the hands of 24 leading executives and thinkers from around the community. So these represent academia, industry, and government, folks from just the top level of thinkers on what the space economy is going to look like, and what the future of space exploration is going to be. This is being led by Rob Meyerson, the former president of Blue Origin, as an independent consultant. So I'll leave these names for you to look through. Next slide, please. So again, we started with the Space Forum model, where we have the technical content at the core of Ascend, but then we're expanding the tent to bring in all kinds of other portions of the industry. So we're talking to private enterprise, national security, civil space, academia. We're trying to really look at the investment community in a great deal. We're looking at small business investments and startup challenges. We're looking at how we're going to build the workforce and what that looks like. So instead of being totally focused on the technical aspects with some small nod to those other areas, we really want to bring everybody into the format and the forum to have broad discussions. And so I want to talk about how we're going to do that. Across those folks, we want to bring in 1,000 to 2,000 attendees as participants, and about 1,000 more in the expo hall, helping to improve the experience for everybody. So with major sponsors like NASA, Lockheed Martin, and a number of others, we're going to build out a really different feel for what the space community main get-together is, and it'll be much larger, in fact, 4 times larger than the last Space Forum. So what will it look like? We'll go on to the next slide, please. We'll define how we're different. So there are 3 key differentiating factors. The first is that we really are trying to connect. So all of these people who are coming will be put into situations where they are talking about major issues from their own perspective in the largest sessions, and then we'll move down and focus further and further as we keep going. So move on to the next slide, please. Meaningful outcomes. This is where Ascend is focused around creating documents and publications that affect not only the AIAA internal structure and initiatives, but also then go out into the public and affect the decisions at the government and academic levels, also in business decisions and investment decisions. Next slide, please. And then finally, engaging technical content, and this is where the technical community really comes into play. We want to deliver the answers and solutions to the challenges that we identify in the first part of the day. So this was all the vision that you've seen before in a previous meeting that Laurent hosted last fall. I want to move on to how we've actually determined that this is going to be organized in each day of Ascend. Next slide, please. So each day will be divided into 3 major areas. In the morning, we'll start with a macro session. This is the equivalent of the plenary sessions that you'd be familiar with in the Space Forum, but these are where we're actually bringing in a larger group of people. So we'll have industry leaders, we'll have celebrities who run foundations, we'll have some focused content around the vision of the future for 3 major areas. So on day 1, we're talking about the near-term commercialization of space. On day 2, we'll be focused on the long-term human exploration and permanent settlement of space. And on day 3, we'll be looking at the national security and policy challenges of all of those activities. So then after those major visionary sessions in the early morning, we'll move on to 5 meta sessions that are going to be running at the same time. Each one of these will be run by what we're sort of calling the field marshals. These are decision makers and leaders from throughout government and industry who are going to identify specific challenges and opportunities within their areas that need to be addressed. So we're talking about associate administrators from NASA, we're talking about leaders from the Department of Commerce, CEOs and C-suite members of the private community, and then leaders from academia, including deans and leading professors, talking about the issues that they're seeing coming down the pipe and what they're going to be offering in the near future in terms of opportunities to the growing commercial sector. And then finally, we'll take a break for lunch and move into the micro sessions after lunch. This is where we're going to focus on the technical committees, the technical paper presentations, poster presentations, and a number of other workshop and town hall type activities where we can get the outcomes that we're looking for that I described before. So we're talking about creating publications and a major paper coming out of Ascend that is the snapshot of what the industry sees as its issues and some of the solutions that it wants to enable moving forward. Next slide, please. So you, as an individual member of AIAA and of the committee itself, have 3 ways to get involved in this process. The first is that we are currently recruiting for reviewers. And so you'll see column 1 is if you don't have any time to do a full paper or presentation, or you don't think you can attend, we do need your help in reviewing the abstracts that are coming in and giving us your guidance on the ideas that are being put forward by the community to make sure that we're focusing on the right areas. And so there's a way that you can do this by going into the Submit an Abstract part of the Call for Content page on the website and clicking through the instructions on the bottom of this column to add expertise to your name. And then that will indicate that you're interested in being a reviewer, so that when the team goes back to assign reviewers, you will show up in that search and you'll be able to participate in that way. And so I would highly encourage you to take part in Ascend in this way. And this is right away. We would like you to sign up as soon as possible. The next way is that you can propose to give an individual presentation. So these are the technical papers that you're familiar with, but we are also asking for non-technical papers, including case studies and looking specifically for student content. We're going to offer many different types of presentation styles. And so instead of just a 30-minute talk as being the standard for each one of these, we're going to reduce that to about a 20-minute talk for individual technical presentations, but we're going to introduce other ways of gathering together to discuss our work. So these will include roundtables where each person has a short time to discuss their current work and then has a longer period of question and answer around a focused topic. We have lightning talks where we're actually going to allow folks to do just a 5-slide quick presentation. These will be reserved for probably students and work in progress sessions. And I should mention that the technical papers allow you to indicate whether you consider your work to be completed research, as in ready for publication in a journal afterward, or if it's still work in progress and you want to be put into one of these more interactive engagement sessions that will allow you to gain further insight and partnerships moving forward. And so the submission process is open through the 17th, as Laurent mentioned. We would highly encourage you to submit your abstracts, and if you are running into deadline issues, you would contact myself and the chairs of the section you're applying to, in this case, Laurent, to ask for an extension, and we'd be happy to help you with that. The third way that you can engage this year, which is different from anything we've ever done at AIAA, is that you can propose sessions individually or through your technical committee. So this is the third column on the right of your screen. So there are sessions that are tied to submitted abstracts, meaning your committee can suggest specific technical sessions that we maybe missed when we were developing the call, so that we can recruit additional papers and abstracts from that particular discipline and build them into sessions. Or you can submit ideas that are not tied to technical presentations. So these can be as representative of your individual institution, meaning that you can propose to do a workshop or tutorial where you're actually coming in for an hour and teaching about a specific software or product or service that you're offering. You can do a town hall where you're announcing the results of some major activity that you've been undertaking. You can apply to host debates or pitch sessions, anything related to the topic areas that we've defined, or even topics that we haven't yet defined that you think need or deserve to be part of Ascend, and you can submit those as an other within the framework of our call. So again, there are two ways to submit engagement sessions, and we'll be very happy to talk to you about how to organize those, and there's a template actually that we've created to help you to walk through that. So I just have one last slide to talk about, if you can move on to that. And this is the ideas about the types of engagement sessions you're going to see. This is also a key way that we're trying to differentiate Ascend from anything we've ever done before. So generally speaking, at conferences, attendees will move from seat to seat and be lectured at the entire day with very limited opportunity to ask a few questions here and there, but not really a lot of engagement for their ideas. And so we really want to break down that model as much as possible. We are reserving the technical format so that for people who are required to give a formal technical talk, we have that as an opportunity. But we would like to build all sorts of other types of activities that you see on this page. And so you would expect to be seeing these when you're in attendance, and you can think through them as you're thinking about how you might want to propose to Ascend. So that concludes my section of this. I believe Laurent will take over to discuss his specific part of the call, which is for the space resources area.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, Nathan. Great introduction in there, and lots of good details for people to get involved. And that's exactly what we wanted to do today for this community. So we the advantage of having a technical committee well represented at Ascend is that we have the opportunity, I think, to place our topics, the space resources utilization, at the core, at the heart of all the conversations at all levels. So Nathan talked about the macro level, the meta level, and the micro level. A lot of things are going to be brought up that pertain to space resources utilization, because on day 1, day 2, and day 3, you already see a little bit of continuation of some of the themes that means, you know, we're going to space, we're furthering this new era of space exploration with a different mindset, which is, you know, with the long term in mind, how to stay in space, how to continue, how to preserve that momentum that people invest so much in. So that's our objective, and our content will essentially is defined around examining the near and long-term development and deployment of technologies and systems for space resource utilization, integrated with other enabling space-based architecture. So we want to look at when we think of the technical content we want to discuss or we want to present, we want to start having these discussions with other people who are not working space resources utilization, but are going to be called to take it into account or to integrate it into a larger, into their own activities or a larger architecture. So because of this way of doing it, we're going to talk, and we're going to do a lot more collaboration with other technical committees and the topic administrators, as they are called by Ascend, that will essentially create these discussions, create these sessions that Nathan discussed. So that means that we're going to review submissions to think of how to put things together in meaningful way to create that engagement, to create that value for all the participants, whether you are in an audience or whether you are part of the presentation or the discussions. So like Nathan said, you're encouraged to propose content to fit those various formats of presentations, and Nathan will show us a little bit more about how ScholarOne is handling that as a submission. So what does our call for content looks like from a space resource utilization? And we looked at both the submission topics that you see on the right, and those are what you will see in ScholarOne when you put in an abstract. Okay, so you have these different submission topics, and they're essentially where you think your talk would, or your abstract, your presentation would fit in terms of topics. But while you're submitting these topics, again, we have these guiding questions to kind of set the establish the mindset of what those sessions are going to be. You know, when you want to put in an abstract or put in the talk together, you know, look at those guiding questions that are much more broad in terms of where the space resources fit in architectures, what are its challenges as a discipline, like concepts of reliability for operations, what you may want to discuss about how to create synergies with terrestrial industry to actually advance the field, and that may become part of a meta topic on one of the days. A big emphasis has already been made on economic analysis involving space resources, and we're going to continue that discussion at Ascend as well as other conferences. And again, the role of governments and the role of governments to set not only technology investment priorities, but also legal frameworks, property rights, and so forth. And then finally, another guiding question is as we embark in long-term utilization of off-Earth resources, what are we bringing as humans with our ethics? What ethical principles are going to guide the fact that we are going to be steward of these resources that are going to involve other humans' interactions on those planetary bodies. So we're broadening this to non-technical topics that relate to space resources. And you'll see that also in the submission topics, as you notice on the right toward the bottom. You'll see also the topic submission labeled as other, because as Nathan mentioned, you can propose something that is not really in the list, and it will be considered by the topic administrators and say, okay, where would that fit? Who would like to actually take this as a discussion point or something like that. So not all the papers are going to fit neatly into like a space resource utilization session, but we're going to think more broadly, where we're going to have technical committees and people of different technical backgrounds come together and engage with us on these topics. So I put some examples to give you an idea. Like, for example, we could have a session centered on system thinking around a specific mission scenario. We could set it up, with a location on the moon, or take a particular example around a traverse that's particularly challenging, and have a discussion about what needs to be called in to work together in order to make these kind of things. So that's a possibility. Another example could be an interdisciplinary roundtable focused on the constraints that come from the environment on the moon, but also the impacts that each surface activity, including ISRU, can have on each other, and how does that either limit or enhance the scope of those activities by creating synergy, by creating more collaborative designs for between those different activities, whether it's a lander coming on a landing pad that needs to be built out of ISRU materials, and then at the same time you have synergy with power and synergy with making sure that your power, your radiation shielding is in the right place, or you have efficient power nearby. How do you integrate all this, and what are both the constraints coming from the environment and from each other affecting all this? So these are examples of integrative thinking. So what we want to do, this is obviously the first of the first of Ascent, and so we're kind of experimenting with this creation. I think the idea really is to create an environment that where ideas really can connect, where people come out and they feel that they've really connected with things that they had not previously thought about, or they had not had the depth of discussion that they wanted. And so that's why the ways of engagement are gonna be focused to bring out contributions from a lot more varied people, and having good collaboration between focused disciplines. Like I said, sessions organized by 2 or more technical committees. And then in general, increase the value of the conference for ISRU, and the individuals. And so I'm going to leave that here, but it will be part of the recording, and we'll share that presentation for you to mull it over and to think about it. And also, we want this to be an opportunity for the technical committees to capture what happened. We've already had discussions with Angel Abu Madrid about trying to make more like a continuation of how to address certain themes between conferences, like between Ascend and then Space Resources Roundtable, and then Earth and Space, and then Ascend again. And these conferences would serve to actually propel each other forward every time by capturing findings, putting together consensus, and then using that to create new roundtables and new discussions. And so finally, want to engage the young professionals and students to design this experience. This is a brand new experience. A lot of technology may be involved. I think this is a great opportunity for our students and our field to actually get engaged, become reviewers for the first time, or become creator of sessions, having ideas about how to have effective presentation of short summaries of work that's being done in different universities and so forth. We're gonna, like I said, work with other professional organizations to leverage resources and to progress together, and really try to provide value and advocacy between the conferences and through podcasts like this one, or position papers, recommendations, and so forth. So that we hope you're going to participate and at least send an abstract to put us on the with good content to create these great sessions. And again, abstracts due March 17, and we'll work with you on if things arise about that date. So with that, let me see. We had planned to take some questions, and so Nathan and I are going to answer questions. And Chris, do we have anything on chat?
We don't have anything on chat. So I think
we're going to open the floor.
Yes.
So anybody wants to ask their questions?
Well, you must have explained everything. Oh, okay.
This is Rob Mueller.
Hello, Rob. Good morning.
Good morning. I have a question about the alternative formats. Instead of having a regular paper presentation, I think it's interesting that you have this possibility of workshops and roundtables. Can you talk some more about that, please?
Sure, thanks for the question. So when you submit your abstract, at the end of the submission process in Scholar One, there is a list of types of presentations or types of sessions that you'll see, and you'll be able to opt in to which ones you're willing to participate in. So you won't be assigned into anything that you can't do or won't do, just on the top. Now the specifics, so in indicating that your work is completed, a roundtable might, or is work in progress. A roundtable, as we envision it, would be around a focused area. So if we bring in the 10 to 15 folks who are specifically talking about a particular discipline area, who don't have completed research in the sense, or they want to be in one of these roundtable sessions, then they would each have a few minutes to talk about their current research, talk about where they're finding challenges, and then a focused conversation would be led, hopefully by someone from the technical committee itself, around that area to see what AIAA initiatives might be useful to bring into play in terms of arranging more focus on that particular discipline, or to exchange knowledge of funding for additional research and partnerships that are available. So that's just one example. The other types, so bringing in, let's see, what was the other topic that you were asking about?
Okay, can you explain the difference between a workshop and a roundtable?
Absolutely. So generally speaking, a workshop is a directed activity with a focused outcome, meaning that so the space weather enterprise workshops that have been going on over the last year, led by NASA and I believe the National Academies, we're focused on bringing in experts to talk about the building of a specific paper around a set of standards that everyone can go by for space weather measurement and a warning system that might exist in the near future. And so hosting a workshop where you bring in interested members of our community who are in attendance at Ascend, who would then participate in basically breakout tables, brainstorming for a paper or publication that's going to be put out in 21. So NASA's talking about hosting several of these through their SBIR and challenge programs, where they educate the attendees about the opportunities in those programs and then take more or less the temperature of the room through a series of guided activities that contribute to their next level of output, meaning the next ideas that they're going to offer to fund or the next opportunities they're going to announce in 2021. So these are hands-on activities where the members are helping to guide some of the major organizations like NASA on their fiscal 21 funding decisions.
Does AIAA provide facilitation and organization for the workshops, or is that are the participants expected to self-organize?
So when in a case like NASA, they're going to self-organize. If an individual member put forward an idea for a workshop that they thought would be a valuable aspect of AIAA's own internal activities, for example, if SRTC wanted to lead a workshop that was talking about an interest area or forming a focus group of members around a particular aspect of space resources, then we would need to provide that guidance internally. We would need to determine how to do that. But when an external organization proposes one of these sessions, we're asking them to provide the mediation.
Is there a cost associated with running a workshop, or can we just piggyback on the conference?
So for year one, at least, we're trying to make everything as part of the conference, meaning that there isn't an additional cost. We're not charging anyone to come in and do a workshop or a town hall. In fact, it is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for the community to have these at no charge to at least to start, so that we're just reserving the room, providing the attendees, and we think that most of these things, we're going to have to sort through all the proposals we get, but most of these will be of high value to the community in general, and so AIAA will provide it as a service of Ascend.
I have another question to follow up here. I'm thinking, for example, it can also be as creative as going down to the exhibit hall, right, and work with a vendor and organize maybe like a discussion around a specific type of hardware, like one of the CLIPS lander, and then having people really get an opportunity to discuss what the lander could do and have a rich conversation around that the vendor itself probably would very much welcome.
That sounds to me more like a town hall, on this slide here. So I'm just trying to get the definition straight so that when we propose, we can be speaking the same language.
Yeah, I think there's opportunity for you to propose something, describe what you want, and maybe that fits neatly into one of the established categories, or it's a hybrid or slightly different from strictly.
That's right. So these are.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. These are suggested definitions of what each of these events or these activities might be, but you're totally free to design your own activity, something that doesn't either fit neatly into one of these, crosses over the boundaries of them. So coming up from the Space Generation group and from our own internal young professionals group, that people have been talking about doing some unconference activities, and this is really where there are no established rules, where a room is simply reserved for a conference session to be developed in real time by the people who show up in that room to attend it. So there's quite a wide variety of things that you can feel free to propose in terms of these different types of sessions.
Yeah. The other thought that we talked about is you can also have work with the topic administrator to actually create that, right? Because if it's not very clear from the website, and Nathan is going to actually go into the website and guide us through that process. But the topic administrators are there to answer questions. So if you go into the topic administrators into the call for content for each topics, you'll see there's a point of contact. In this case, for space resources, it's me. And then we start working with the idea of that session that you have in mind. And then this way it is well communicated within the structure, the organizing structure behind the scene. And maybe it involves other technical committees or other disciplines. And then we create it with you.
Okay, with that, we have a question in chat from Clive Neal. Clive, would you like to get on and ask it?
We'll get on and ask it. I'm just thinking about this, and from a conversation I had with Kathy Larinia about an hour ago about getting the science community involved with this, because if you look at space resources, it is the science data that's going to point us in the direction where these resources are. And I think it would be good to explore science and engineering synergies there to build those connections, because this is a very different type of conference for me. And I learn a lot when I go there, not least of which is some of the acronyms, not all of them, but just some. But I think it's important to sort of bring in and explore those synergies in terms of what is enabled by, what can be enabled by exploring for resources. What data sets do we already have so that we can move this along? What is also needed to actually point to where the resources are for exploitation, although we can't use that word, of course, for use, and also the for profit. But it's also going to have a lot of important science data in there. So having the two communities working together on this particular topic it actually enhances the return of the investment in actually doing this.
Right. Yeah, completely agree. That sounds very much like one of the themes that could be developed in a special engagement session. So we could work all together. Kathy is part of another TC, and so we could probably create something that's of interest of several.
I think it would be good, because we've got a lot of time to get people interested in that session. But the abstract deadline is when now? It's
March 17. And we'll work with people into March, basically. Yeah.
Because if we can get a link out to the science community and say that there will be an opportunity to explore science synergies into this type of conference, I think you'll get pretty good response, especially after Lunar Planetary Science Conference has been cancelled. So.
Right.
Thanks, Clive. Yeah, Kathy had corresponded with me as well about this. And so my response was that Ascend is trying to be the platform to serve the space community, and especially in a time of need like this, we want to do whatever we can to provide the platform for these presentations and for the conversation that's going to come out of them, as you alluded to. So we were just discussing this yesterday.
Good.
The thought that we had was to reach out to that community, and I think that's a great idea. And then in terms of the deadline, it is the full deadline is March 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. However, we are offering extensions individually, so all one would need to do in order to gain a little more time on that deadline would be to contact the TA for the section that they're applying to, or myself, and request some additional time.
I think if we could get an announcement that is targeted to the science community, pointing them to this particular meeting, we get that out. We can put that over various listservs,
Okay.
because I would imagine that that many in the science community don't know about this.
Right.
And so I just think it's a great opportunity to think, if this is meant to be a very different conference, let's start building synergies between communities that don't normally cross-fertilize.
Right.
Great. Great idea.
Nathan, do you want to use our remaining time to go over things you wanted to point out in the website?
Yeah, I can do a demo. It looks, Rob, were you going to ask a quick question though?
Yeah, I have a quick question. What is the price for the Shark Tank?
So we're in discussion with that on that right now. There currently isn't one that I can tell you.
Okay, I have a thought on that. DoD recently held a Shark Tank giving out real contracts to winners in the millions of dollars. So, you know, it might be good to engage with non-traditional players like DoD or even NASA or venture capitalists. But if it was real money, I think your level of energy would go substantially higher.
Agreed, and I think there are a couple of DoD opportunities through, I believe, AFRL and a couple other spots where they've been actually hosting Shark Tanks and giving out contracts on the spot. So we have had conversations about whether it's possible to host them at Ascend, but there's not a confirmed yes on that yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Laurent, if you can stop sharing, I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, so I'm going to do a quick demo through some of the call for content. You go to ascend.events. This is the homepage for Ascend. We're not on the AIAA domain. We have our own domain, ascend.events. You go into experience and click on the call for content. That will bring up the page that outlines all of the ways that you can engage. First, can you see my screen? Is it showing the website?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we're good.
So the call for content is open. We have a bit of a description of what the call for content is. There's a video overview that talks about these same types of things. We have the participation instructions, which are online, which are very important. The main way to get into the submission system is through either one of these buttons. They actually go to the same place, but we just find it's easier so that people aren't confused as to what they're trying to go do. If you scroll down the page, you'll see that we have a link to that PDF that's in the presentation you have today that talks about the 3 ways that you can get involved. Moving down, we start to have more definition of the technical formats or the traditional formats that we would expect to host at Ascend, and then some more definition of the non-traditional formats. So Rob, you can look to these for a little bit more explanation. So again, these are flexible, and you're free to submit anything you'd like in terms of session design. Then we go down to the presentation types, which defines how you're going to identify what you're putting in. You first indicate an individual presentation, then select one of the subtypes that are defined here. Or you select that you're putting in an engagement session, and you'll go through the instructions on how to do that. We have a session template, which is the format for how we would like you to talk about your session so that we get the basic information all together. The topics are listed below, and each one has its own individual download available, or you can scroll all the way to the bottom and see all the topic areas in one large download. That makes it searchable, so you can look for places where your topic might overlap with other areas and search for places that maybe you were thinking about putting in a second paper or a third paper. And then finally, some additional instructions at the bottom and the link through back to Scholar One. So if you go to Scholar One to submit an abstract, it's going to first take you to this login page. If you don't have an AIAA account, which all of you should, you would create one over here. Otherwise, you just log in here. I'll go ahead and use my AIAA ID for this demonstration, and we'll log in. So this will take you to the Ascend Scholar One homepage for all of the call for content. If you were looking to become a reviewer, you would click on your name, go into general information, excuse me, scroll down the field until you see where you indicate which topic areas you're interested in. Now this is going to show you every single subtopic. And so the best thing to do, excuse me, is just to select the top level. You can ignore the E's and the P's. Those are internal coding so that we know which one is an experience session and which one is an individual presentation. But you can select at the topic level which areas you're willing to review for, so that when Laurent, for example, goes in for the space resources, he'll be able to see your name pop up and indicates you're willing to review. So you would come down here and indicate right here that you are space resource utilization available for review in that area. You would add that expertise to your profile, and you'd be done with that. For submissions, you would click on the submission tab and start with the view submissions page. The first step is to create a new submission, in which case you first indicate yourself, the title, and your own bio. Then the submission details is where those instructions come into play. So the first indication is whether this is a presentation, an individual abstract that is, or an engagement session. In an individual presentation, you'll then select the subtype. So this is a technical paper of completed research. You'll then pick the topic area. So let's pick space resource utilization. And then the subtopics will populate. You'll be able to pick the ones that we've identified or other in case your paper doesn't fit into any one of these in particular. So I'll select other for this time. And then here are those session type preferences where you can say, I can only present in a technical presentation, or I'm willing to do any of these other types of activities. This is a required selection here. And then you would save and continue. I'm not going to save so that we don't create a new paper. You can add your authors. There are some rules and a place where you actually upload your file. So you can add a PDF, doc, or docx as your abstract. There is no formal abstract requirement or template. We do ask that a lot of folks use the sort of general template for the final manuscript, and that's a good place to start if you don't have any other place. And then, of course, review and submit. You must actually hit review that everything is complete, and then hit the submit button at the bottom. Well, it's not going to let me hit that submit button because it knows that there are incomplete steps. But you must hit submit in order for it to get to us. If you have forgotten to hit submit, you'll get a reminder at some point in the system, but I would highly recommend submitting it yourself once it's complete. So that's a general overview of how this is going to be done. There's some additional instruction you'll get if you choose to go and be a reviewer. There's a review section where you'll be able to see what's been assigned to you and submit your scoring. If you take on the role of a session lead, for example, then you'll have additional functionality in this system. But for now, we just want to keep it simple. So again, if you want to become a reviewer, edit your general information. And if you want to submit, go to the submission tab and start the process in the left-hand side by creating a new submission. Any questions about that process?
Yeah, so I have a question for all, basically. So if whatever you're thinking your presentation could be, whether it could fit you know, a full technical presentation or simply be part of a panel, you would still go through all this, right? And then for example, short presentation or lightning talk could be part of, you know, could give you a chance to be called in to be part of a panel or a roundtable or a discussion, right, Nathan?
That's right. So in a lot of cases, we want the initial abstracts to be the major technical papers that we've always accepted and we've always been looking for. And then we will add those folks to specific sections or technical sessions, but then we might also create cross-disciplinary sessions where you would be appearing twice, where, so for example, at T&E last year, we had Stan Borowski give his talk on basically lunar exploration opportunities that are unlocked by nuclear propulsion. His area is nuclear propulsion. We then asked him to come back and give a second talk at a higher level to a broader audience who was interested in that, not from the nuclear propulsion community, but from the broader space community, to talk about different architectures and systems of systems, as Laurent talked about earlier. So we're actually going to build that session at Ascend, where the technical talks will occur in their technical disciplinary areas, but then those same authors will be, or select authors from those technical fields will be brought into a larger session to talk cross-disciplinarily with one another about this larger sort of arrangement, or these larger ideas. And so there's, once you submit your abstract in to become part of the technical program, there are multiple ways that we'll find spots for you to speak and to be on panels or to be on stage. And so it's not necessarily just for one opportunity. There might be multiple chances for you to be presenting the same work, but in a different format and to a different audience.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, we've anybody has any more questions? Do we have anything on chat? I haven't looked. Chris?
No, Laurent, we don't have anything more on chat.
All right. Chris, do you have any other comments?
No, well, I think like one thought here is we, and you as the Space Resources topic lead, and I and the other members of the TC would work with everyone who might submit something to the topic area to integrate your ideas into a plan that involves something of a special kind of session, like a roundtable or open house, with also other technical sessions. So we're looking for what does the community want to do, and what are ideas from the community, and then formulate a plan that's got a number of activities.
And I will add that this process that we developed for Ascend 2020 was really the first attempt at doing something very different from how AIAA has integrated technical content previously, but using the same software. And so there are some noted difficulties in how we came to this particular arrangement for the call for content. And so it is a work in progress. And so as you participate, we would appreciate, or I would appreciate, any notes that you have on difficulties of understanding the instructions, or better ways that we could improve the process for 2021. We're going to be doing an analysis of this process immediately following the close and announcement of the accepted papers in May, so that we can improve the process for the future and bring more of you into the fold of developing the call from the very beginning as much as possible. So please participate as much as you can, and do let us know when you hit snags along the way.
All right, very good. Well, if we don't have any other questions, then I think we'll adjourn this. I hope this was helpful and useful for all of you to think about how to submit. Now you know how to reach us. We're going to, this has been recorded, so we're going to place this probably on the YouTube channel, and we're going to distribute this, and you feel free to share it and to send it to other people so that they themselves get involved, either as reviewers, presenters, participants, and so forth. So once again, thank you for your time this morning, and please reach out to us with your questions.
Thank you, Laurent and Nathan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan.